I thought the flowers would fix everything. I thought showing up at her elite lounge would remind my wife that we were still married. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye, pressed a single dollar bill into my palm, and told me to go away. Loud enough for her rich friends to hear, with her wedding ring turned backwards so no one would know she belonged to me. What she didn't know was that I had $1,000 in my pocket and a head of security who understood respect. What happened next flipped her entire world upside down, exposed her father's racist schemes, and forced her to choose between the image she'd been selling and the man she'd been hiding. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story about betrayal, quiet revenge, and one cold reversal is just getting started. The old couple's kitchen smelled like coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. I packed up my tools, wiping the dust off my hands with a rag that had seen better days. My knees ached from being on the floor for the last 2 hours, but the work was done. The outlet that had been sparking and scaring Mrs. Patterson half to death was fixed, safe, solid. "You're a lifesaver, Darius," Mr. Patterson said, shaking my hand with both of his. His grip was warm and grateful. "What do we owe you?" I gave them my usual rate. Fair, but not cheap. I did good work, and I knew it. Mr. Patterson counted out the bills while Mrs. Patterson wrapped something in foil at the counter. "Here," she said, pressing a still warm bundle into my hands. "Banana bread. I made too much." I smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she said, patting my arm like I was one of her grandkids. "You take care now." Walking back to my truck, I felt something I didn't always feel after a job: respect, simple, human respect. The kind that didn't care what I looked like or where I came from, just appreciation for showing up and doing what I said I'd do. I tossed my tool bag in the back and slid into the driver's seat. My phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark. I picked it up and checked for messages. One text from Whitney, sent 3 hours ago. Busy. Don't wait up. No heart emoji. No love you. Not even sorry. Just 5 words that felt like a door closing. I stared at those words longer than I should have. Lately, that's all I got from my wife. Short texts, cold shoulders, nights where she came home so late I was already asleep, and mornings where she left before I woke up. We lived in the same penthouse, but we barely lived together. I set the phone down and started the engine. The banana bread sat on the passenger seat, still warm through the foil. I thought about Mrs. Patterson's smile, her kindness, the way she looked at me like I mattered. Then I thought about Whitney, my wife, the woman I loved, the woman who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and fall asleep with her head on my chest, the woman who now looked at me like I was in the way. I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait up, but I wasn't going to just go home and sit there either. I was going to surprise her, bring her flowers, show up at that fancy lounge she loved so much, the Wren Room, and remind her that we were still married, that I still cared, that maybe, just maybe, she could make a little time for the man she promised forever to. I drove to a flower shop near the edge of the city, the kind that stayed open late for last-minute romantics and people trying to fix things. I picked out a simple bouquet, white roses mixed with something purple the florist said was called stock. Nothing too flashy, just thoughtful. "Special occasion?" the girl at the counter asked. "Trying to save one," I said. She gave me a sad little smile and didn't charge me for the ribbon. Back in the truck, I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I'd cleaned up after the job, washed my hands and face in the Patterson's bathroom, but I still looked like a man who worked with his hands. My shirt was clean but plain. My boots were good, but they were work boots. I didn't look like the kind of man who belonged at the Wren Room, but I was Whitney's husband. That had to count for something. I put the truck in drive and headed toward the city lights, the flowers resting on the seat beside me. Hope sat in my chest, stubborn and warm, but right next to it was something colder. a knot of doubt that whispered maybe she didn't want to be surprised. Maybe she didn't want me there at all. I pushed that voice down and kept driving. The Wren Room sat tucked between two glass towers in the part of downtown where everything cost too much and looked too perfect. The entrance was unmarked except for a small gold plaque beside a sleek black door. If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd walk right past it. I knew what I was looking for. I parked the truck a block away and grabbed the flowers. The evening air was cool, and the sidewalk was full of people in suits and dresses who looked like they'd never broken a sweat in their lives. I walked past them, steady and calm, even though my heart was beating a little too fast. At the door, a woman in all black stood behind a small podium. She looked me up and down before I even said a word. Her eyes paused on my boots. "Good evening," she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Are you a member?" "I'm meeting my wife," I said, polite, respectful. "Name?" "Whitney Hale." Her expression changed just a little. Recognition. Maybe surprise. She tapped something on her tablet. One moment. I stood there holding flowers like some kind of fool while she whispered into a small earpiece. A few seconds later, a man stepped up beside her. Big guy, bald head, sharp suit. I recognized him from the one time Whitney had brought me here months ago. Rico, head of security. Rico looked at me, then at the hostess, then back at me. "He's with Ms. Hale?" Rico asked. The hostess nodded, but she looked uncertain. Rico pulled out his phone and checked something. I saw Whitney's name at the top of the screen, saw my name listed underneath hers as a guest. Rico's face stayed neutral, but I caught the slight shift in his posture, respect, or at least recognition that I wasn't lying. "You're good," Rico said, waving me through. As I stepped past the hostess, a younger guy in a security uniform smirked. "Delivery entrance is around back," he muttered to another staff member, just loud enough for me to hear. Rico turned his head slowly, didn't say a word, just looked at the guy. The smirk died. I kept walking. Inside, the lounge was all low lighting and soft music. Crystal glasses caught the glow from little candles on every table. People laughed in that quiet, controlled way rich folks do when they don't want to seem too excited about anything. Everything smelled like expensive cologne and leather. I scanned the room, and then I saw her. Whitney sat at a VIP table near the back, surrounded by people who looked like they bought cars the way normal people bought coffee. Her hair was perfect. Her dress was the kind that probably cost more than my truck payment. She was laughing, leaning close to a man in a suit so sharp it could cut glass. Jace Rowland. I recognized him from pictures. Whitney's colleague, board member. The guy she mentioned a little too often when she talked about work. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just out, she was out. With him, with them. Looking like she belonged, looking like she was single. I stepped closer, weaving between tables, the flowers suddenly heavy in my hand. And then I saw it. Her left hand, wrapped around a champagne glass. Her wedding ring turned inward, hidden, on purpose. I stopped a few feet from the table. My throat felt tight, but I kept my face calm. I didn't want to embarrass her, didn't want to make a scene. I just wanted her to see me, to remember me. Whitney glanced up. For half a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Surprise? Maybe even fear. But then it hardened. Her expression went cold, like a mask dropping into place, like I was a problem she hadn't expected. "Hey," I said quietly, "I wanted to surprise you." I held out the flowers. She didn't take them. The table went quiet. Jace looked at me with mild curiosity, like I was a waiter who'd brought the wrong order. A woman in diamonds leaned back in her seat and sipped her drink, watching. Whitney stood, but only halfway. She moved just enough to block me from the table, from her friends, like I was a stranger, like I didn't belong. "Darius." My name came out flat, cold. "I thought maybe we could talk." I said. Just for a minute. Her jaw tightened. She stepped closer, close enough that no one else could hear, and her smile stayed frozen in place. Not here, she whispered. Her voice had venom in it. Don't ruin this. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Searched her eyes for the woman I married, for the woman who used to hold my hand in public and call me baby when no one was listening. She wasn't there. Whitney reached into her tiny designer purse, the kind that probably cost $1,000 and could barely hold a phone. She pulled out a single-dollar bill, crisp, clean. She pressed it into my palm. Here, she said, loud enough for the table to hear, loud enough for Jace to hear, loud enough to make sure everyone understood what she was doing. Go away. The table reacted, a quiet laugh, a smirk. Someone murmured, Is that her? Another voice, smooth and amused, said, I thought she had upgraded. The dollar burned in my hand. My ears felt hot. My jaw locked tight. Every muscle in my body wanted to react, to yell, to throw the money back in her face, to make her feel what she just made me feel. But I didn't. I closed my fingers around the bill and looked at Whitney one last time, gave her one more chance to take it back, to say she didn't mean it, to remember who I was. She stared back at me, her eyes hard, her mouth set in a line. Leave, she said. I turned around, walked away, the flowers still in my other hand, the dollar crumpled in my fist. I didn't run, didn't storm out. I just walked, steady and calm, toward the entrance. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone in the room could hear it, but my face stayed smooth. Near the door, I stopped. Rico stood by the podium, watching the room like he always did. Professional, alert. I walked up to him. Sir, I said quietly, I need a professional favor. Rico's eyes flicked to me. He didn't speak, just waited. I reached into my wallet, pulled out $100 bills. I'd been saving them. A bonus from a big contract I'd finished last month. Money I'd planned to surprise Whitney with. Maybe take her somewhere nice. Somewhere we could remember why we got married in the first place. I held the cash low, discreet. Not for show, just clear. I'm Whitney Hale's husband, I said. My voice was steady, calm. I want her escorted out, polite, no drama, just removed. Rico's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. He looked at the money, then at me. That's your wife, he said slowly, and she just paid me to disappear. Silence stretched between us. Rico glanced at his phone again, checked something, verified something. Then he looked back at me and gave one slow nod. He took the money, folded it, slipped it into his jacket. Then he signaled two other security staff with a subtle gesture. I watched them move across the room, smooth and professional, heading straight for the VIP table. Whitney saw them coming. Confusion flashed across her face first, then something sharper. Fear. Rico reached the table and leaned down slightly, speaking in that low, calm tone security people use when they mean business but don't want to cause panic. Ms. Hale, he said, we need you to step outside. Whitney laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Excuse me? Now, please. Jace leaned back in his chair, hands up like he wanted nothing to do with whatever was happening. I'm not involved, he said quickly. The people at the table suddenly looked anywhere but at Whitney. Strangers. All of them. Whitney stood, her face going red. This is ridiculous. Do you know who I... Ms. Hale. Rico's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. Let's not make this difficult. She looked around the table, at Jace, at her so-called friends. No one moved, no one defended her. Then her eyes found me, standing near the door, watching. The humiliation hit her like a slap. Outside, the cool air hit us both. Whitney spun on Rico, her voice shaking with fury. What the hell is this? Who authorized this? Rico didn't answer, just stepped back, giving her space but staying close. She turned to me, her eyes wild, her perfect composure shattered. "What did you do?" she shouted. I looked at her, calm, steady. "I reversed what you started." Her mouth opened, closed. She looked like she wanted to scream, to hit me, to make me take it back. Instead, her voice dropped. Panic bled through the anger. "My father," she whispered. "Malcolm, he'll destroy you, Darius. You don't you don't understand what you just stepped into." I looked at her for one more second. Then I walked away. The flowers sat in a trash can near the curb. I didn't look back. The city lights blurred past my windshield as I drove. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. I could still feel that dollar bill in my pocket, crumpled and worthless, burning through the fabric like it was on fire. My phone started ringing. Whitney's name flashed across the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. I let it ring. The fourth time, I answered, put it on speaker, kept my eyes on the road. "Darius!" Her voice came through sharp and ragged, half crying, half screaming. "How could you do that to me? In front of everyone. Do you have any idea what I did?" My voice came out quieter than I expected, steadier. "You paid me $1 to go away, Whitney. In front of your friends. You treated me like I was nobody. That's not—" She sucked in a breath. "You embarrassed me. You had me thrown out like some kind of what?" I asked. "Like someone who doesn't belong? Someone who should know their place?" Silence on the other end. Just her breathing, fast and uneven. "I publicly humiliated you," I said. "The same way you publicly humiliated me. That's all I did. I just had more cash to make it stick." "You don't understand," she said. Her voice cracked. "My father, Jace, was there. The board. I don't care about the board," I said. "I care that my wife pretended she didn't know me, that she hid her wedding ring, that she looked at me like I was trash." "Darius," I ended the call. My hands were shaking now. Adrenaline, maybe, or anger finally catching up to the calm I'd forced myself to keep. I drove straight home. No detours, no stops to cool down. 40 minutes in traffic that felt like 40 hours. When I pulled into the parking garage under our building, her building really, since her name was on everything, I sat in the truck for a moment. The engine ticked as it cooled. My phone buzzed with texts I didn't read. I got out, took the elevator up to the penthouse, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that cost more than some people's cars, the one that never felt like mine. Whitney was already there. She must have gotten a driver to bring her. She stood in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. Her perfect dress, her perfect hair, her perfect makeup, all of it still intact. But her eyes were wild. The second I walked through the door, she turned on me. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her voice was high and tight. "Jace called me a liability." "Liability, Darius. My mother is already texting. My father—" "Your father," I repeated. I set my keys on the counter. Slow, deliberate. "You said he'd destroy me. What does that mean exactly?" She stopped pacing, stared at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world. "It means he can," she said. "Malcolm Hale doesn't lose. He doesn't get embarrassed. And you just made his daughter look like a fool in front of people who matter." "People who matter," I said. The words tasted bitter. "And what am I, Whitney? Do I matter?" Her mouth opened, closed. She looked away. "That's what I thought," I said. I walked past her, heading toward the bedroom. I needed to change, needed to get out of these clothes that still smelled like her cologne and champagne and humiliation. She followed me. "You can't just—" she started. "Darius, stop. We need to talk about this." I pulled off my shirt and tossed it on the bed. Grabbed a clean one from the closet. "Talk about what?" I asked. About how you introduced me as a friend at every event, about how you turn your ring around when we're in public, about how you schedule your life so we're barely in the same room. That's not fair. Fair? I turned to look at her. You gave me $1 and told me to go away. In front of people. You want to talk about fair? Her face crumpled. For a second, I thought she might actually cry. Real tears, not the angry kind. I didn't mean it like that, she said quietly. Then how did you mean it? She didn't answer. I finished changing and walked back out to the living room, grabbed a blanket from the linen closet. What are you doing? Whitney asked. Sleeping on the couch. Darius, I'm tired, Whitney. I'm tired of being your secret. I'm tired of being the husband you hide. I'm just tired. I lay down on the couch, pulled the blanket over me, and closed my eyes. She stood there for a long time. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to say something. Else, to give in, to make it easier for her. I didn't. Eventually, I heard her heels click across the hardwood floor, heard the bedroom door close, heard the lock turn. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake, wondering how we'd gotten here, how the woman I loved had turned into someone I didn't recognize, and wondering if I'd ever really known her at all. Morning came too fast and too bright. Sunlight poured through the massive windows, cutting across my face like a knife. I sat up, my back aching from the couch, and checked my phone. 7 missed calls, 12 texts, all from Whitney. I scrolled through them without opening most of them. Apologies, accusations, panic, a cycle that repeated itself over and over. The last one, sent at 3 a.m., just said, I'm sorry. I set the phone down and went to make coffee. Whitney emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, dressed for work, hair pulled back, makeup perfect, like nothing had happened, like last night was just a bad dream. We could both pretend didn't exist. She stopped when she saw me standing in the kitchen. We need to fix this, she said. No good morning, no how did you sleep, just business. Fix what? I asked. The marriage or your image? Her jaw tightened. Both. At least she was honest. I have a board meeting this afternoon, she continued. Malcolm will be there. He's going to ask questions. I need to know what you're planning to do. Planning to do? I poured my coffee slowly. I'm planning to go to work, fix some electrical panels, maybe grab lunch with my cousin. You know, normal people things. Darius, I'm serious. So am I. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped, trying for softness, trying to find the version of us that used to exist. I know I messed up, she said. I know I hurt you, but walking away right now, making this a thing, it's only going to make everything worse. Worse for who? For both of us. I looked at her, really looked at her, saw the fear hiding under the control, saw the woman who was more worried about what people thought than what I felt. I'm not walking away, I said quietly. Not yet, but I'm not pretending anymore either. You want to fix this? Then fix it for real. Not just for the board, not just for your parents, for us. She nodded quickly, too quickly. I will, I promise. Just give me time. Time to do what? Hide me better? That's not. She stopped, took a breath. I'll make this right. Okay, I said. Then start by telling your father the truth. Tell Malcolm that I'm your husband, that you're not single, that you're not available for whatever deal he's trying to make with Jace. Her face went pale. You knew about that? She whispered. I'm not stupid, Whitney. I see things. I hear things. You think I don't notice when you delete texts? When you take calls in another room? She looked away. Tell him, I said again. Today, at the board meeting, tell Malcolm the truth, or I will. You can't, she said quickly. If you show up there, if you make a scene, I'm not making a scene. I'm asking my wife to be honest about her marriage. That's not a scene. That's basic respect. She stared at me, her eyes swimming with something I couldn't quite name. Fear, maybe, or shame. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Don't think. Do." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, paused with her hand on the handle. "I do love you," she said without turning around. "I know you don't believe me right now, but I do." Then she was gone. I stood in the kitchen, holding my coffee, staring at the space where she'd been. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But love wasn't just words. Love was action. Love was showing up. Love was choosing someone even when it cost you something. And Whitney hadn't chosen me in a long time. I went to work because I didn't know what else to do. Sometimes the best thing for a broken heart is a project that needs fixing, something concrete, something you can actually solve. The job site was a small office building on the east side, outdated wiring, flickering lights, the kind of work that required focus and kept your hands busy. I worked next to a guy named Marcus, another union electrician who'd been doing this twice as long as me. Good guy, didn't talk much unless he had something worth saying. Around noon, he looked over at me while we were pulling wire through a conduit. "You good, D?" he asked. "Yeah. Why?" "You've been quiet. Quieter than usual." I shrugged. "Just thinking." "Woman trouble?" I glanced at him. He raised an eyebrow. "That obvious?" I asked. "I've been married 32 years, Marcus said. I know the look. I didn't say anything, just kept working. "Advice?" Marcus offered. "Sure. Don't let nobody make you feel small, not even someone you love, especially not someone you love." I stopped pulling wire, looked at him. "They respect you or they don't," Marcus continued. "Money, color, class, none of that matters if there's no respect. And if she can't give you that, then you gotta respect yourself enough to walk." He went back to work like he hadn't just summed up my entire marriage in 3 sentences. I finished the job in silence, Marcus's words sitting heavy in my chest. That evening, I didn't go home. I drove to Tasha's place instead. Tasha was my cousin, 29, sharp as a knife, and the kind of person who'd tell you the truth even when you didn't want to hear it. She worked as a nurse's aide at a hospital downtown, pulling doubles half the week and somehow still finding time to check on me. She opened the door in scrubs, hair tied back, looking tired but alert. "Darius?" She frowned. "What's wrong? Can I come in?" She stepped aside. Her apartment was small but clean, comfortable, the kind of place that actually felt like a home. Pictures on the walls, a blanket thrown over the couch, a mug of tea on the coffee table. I sat down and told her everything. The lounge, the dollar, Whitney getting removed, the fight, the board meeting, all of it. Tasha listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back and crossed her arms. "So let me get this straight," she said. "Your wife treated you like the help, gave you $1 to leave, and now she's mad because you embarrassed her?" "Yeah." "And she still hasn't told her family that y'all are married?" "No." Tasha shook her head slowly. "Dee, what are you doing?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I love her, or I thought I did, but I don't even know who she is anymore." "Love isn't supposed to make you feel like you're not enough," Tasha said quietly. "Love isn't supposed to hide you." "I know. Do you?" She leaned forward. "Because it sounds like you're still waiting for her to choose you. And baby, she's had plenty of chances." I didn't have an answer for that. Tasha sighed and stood up. "You're staying here tonight. I'll get you a blanket." "I don't want to." "You're staying," she said firmly. "And tomorrow, you're gonna figure out what you actually want. Not what Whitney wants. Not what her family wants. What you want." She disappeared into her room and came back with a pillow and blanket. Tossed them on the couch. "Thank you," I said. "That's what family's for." I lay down on Tasha's couch that night, staring at the ceiling just like I had at the penthouse. But somehow, this felt different, safer, like I could actually breathe. My phone buzzed, a text from Whitney. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Another text. "Darius, please. We need to talk." I turned my phone face down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd figure things out. Tomorrow, I'd decide what I wanted. But tonight, I just needed to rest. The next morning, I met Rico for coffee. He'd texted me the night before, asking if I wanted to talk, said it was important. I figured he probably wanted to give me some kind of warning. Tell me to stay away from the Ren room, maybe. Tell me I'd caused enough trouble. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from the lounge, neutral ground, public but quiet. Rico was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with two coffees waiting. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. "Thanks for the coffee." We sat in silence for a moment. Rico wasn't the kind of guy who rushed into conversations. He moved deliberate, spoke deliberate. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "I've worked at the Ren Room for 8 years," he said. "I've seen a lot. Rich people treating staff like furniture, marriages falling apart in VIP sections, people buying their way out of consequences." I sipped my coffee and waited. "What you did the other night," Rico continued, "that was different." "Different how?" "Most guys would have made a scene, yelled, thrown something, made it about ego." He looked at me steady. "You stayed calm, handled it clean. That takes discipline." "Or stupidity," I said. Rico smiled slightly. "Maybe both." He pulled out his phone and scrolled to something, turned it so I could see. Security footage, the VIP section from that night. I watched myself approach Whitney's table, watched her hand me the dollar, watched myself walk away. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because someone else was watching too." Rico zoomed in on a man sitting 3 tables away. Older, silver hair, expensive suit. I recognized him from pictures Whitney kept in the penthouse. Family photos she barely looked at but always kept perfectly displayed. Malcolm Hale, her father. He was there. I felt my stomach drop. "Whole time," Rico confirmed. "He saw everything, the flowers, the dollar, you leaving, Whitney getting removed." "So she didn't just embarrass me in front of her friends?" I said slowly. "She did it in front of him." "Exactly." Rico put his phone away. "And from what I've seen of Malcolm Hale, that wasn't an accident." I sat back, processing. "He wanted me to see it," I said. "Wanted me to know my place." Rico nodded. "Rich folks like that? They don't just want control. They want you to accept being controlled. That whole scene was a test. And I failed." "No." Rico's voice was firm. "You passed. Because you didn't accept it. You flipped it. And that," he pointed at me, "that scares them more than yelling ever would." I thought about that. About Malcolm watching from across the room. About Whitney doing exactly what her father expected. About me being the only variable they hadn't accounted for. "There's something else," Rico said. "Jace Rowland has been asking questions. About you. About how often you come to the lounge. Trying to build a picture." "A picture of what?" "A dangerous black man," Rico said bluntly. "Someone unstable. Someone who needs to be dealt with." The words hit like cold water. "They want me to be the bad guy," I said. "They need you to be," Rico corrected. "Because if you're not, then Whitney's the one who looks bad. And Malcolm can't have that." I finished my coffee in silence, turning everything over in my mind. "So, what do I do?" I asked finally. "You stay clean," Rico said. "Don't give them anything. No yelling, no threats, no public confrontations. You stay calm, stay respectful, and you make them show their hand first." "And if they come after me anyway?" Rico stood up, dropping cash on the table for the coffee. "Then you make sure you got witnesses," he said. And you make sure you're not fighting alone." He walked out, leaving me sitting there with a head full of warnings and a heart full of something I hadn't felt in a while. Clarity. I wasn't the problem. I'd never been the problem. The problem was a family that valued image over truth, control over love, power over people, and my wife had chosen them over me. Not once, not by accident, again and again and again. I pulled out my phone and texted Whitney, "We need to talk. Tonight, no excuses." Her reply came fast. "Okay." I stood up and walked out into the morning sun, ready to have the conversation that would decide everything. Whitney came home early that evening. I heard her heels on the hardwood before I saw her. Sharp, quick clicks that meant she was nervous or angry or both. I sat on the couch, waiting. I'd been there for an hour, just sitting, thinking, getting my words straight in my head so I wouldn't mess this up. She walked into the living room and stopped when she saw me, still in her work clothes, still perfect on the outside, still falling apart underneath. "You wanted to talk," she said. "Sit down." She hesitated, then sat in the chair across from me, not next to me. The distance felt intentional. "I talked to Rico today," I started. Her face went tight. "The bouncer?" "Security professional," I corrected. "And yeah, he told me some interesting things." Whitney's hands gripped the armrest. "Like what?" "Like your father was there, at the lounge, the night you gave me that dollar." She went pale. "He saw everything, didn't he?" I asked. "Saw you treat me like I was nothing, saw me walk away, saw you get removed." "Darius, was it his idea?" I cut her off. "Or did you come up with that on your own?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" My voice stayed calm, but I could feel the anger underneath, steady, cold. "Explain it to me, Whitney. Explain how you looked at your husband and handed him a dollar like he was begging for spare change." She stood up suddenly, started pacing. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The board wants me to project a certain image. My father—" "Your father what?" "Told you to humiliate me." "He told me to be smart." She spun around, her voice rising. "He told me that being seen with you, with someone who doesn't fit, could cost me everything. The merger, the expansion, my position." "Your position," I repeated. "Not our marriage, not us. Your position." "It's the same thing." "No." I stood up too. "It's not. Because I would never ask you to hide me to protect my job. I would never make you feel small so I could feel big." She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears started forming in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just another strategy. "I love you," she said. Her voice cracked. "I know I haven't shown it. I know I've been terrible, but I do love you, Darius." "Then prove it." "How?" "Tell your father, tomorrow. Tell Malcolm that I'm your husband, that you're not hiding me anymore, that whatever deal he's got with Jace doesn't matter because you're married." Whitney's face crumpled. She shook her head. "I can't." "Can't or won't?" "You don't know what he's like," she whispered. "He'll cut me off. He'll turn the board against me. He'll make sure I lose everything." "You'll lose me," I said quietly. "Is that worth less?" She didn't answer, just stood there, crying silently, looking at me like I was asking her to choose between breathing and eating. And maybe I was. Maybe that's exactly what this was. A choice she should have made a long time ago. "I need time," she said finally. "You've had time. 2 years of marriage, Whitney. 2 years of hiding me. 2 years of me making excuses for you. How much more time do you need?" "I don't know." The words hung in the air between us. Honest, at least. Brutally honest. "Then I'll make it easy," I said. "I'm staying with Tasha for a while. You figure out what you want, who you want. And when you know, really know, you let me know." "You're leaving?" Her voice went high and thin. I'm giving you space to decide. That's different. Darius, please. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the couch, picked up the small bag I'd already packed, and left by the door. I love you, I said, looking at her one last time. But I can't keep loving someone who's ashamed of me. I can't keep disappearing to make you comfortable. I walked out. She didn't. Follow. 3 days passed. I stayed at Tasha's, sleeping on her couch and trying to keep my mind busy with work. Big commercial job downtown. New office building that needed a complete electrical overhaul. The kind of project that could set me up for months if I did it right. The contractor, a guy named Bill who'd worked with me before, offered me lead on the whole thing. More responsibility, more money, more proof that I didn't need Whitney's World to survive. You sure you can handle it? Bill asked, looking over the blueprints. It's a lot of coordination, a lot of moving parts. I can handle it, I said. He studied me for a second, then nodded. All right, it's yours. Don't make me regret it. I threw myself into the work, coordinated the crew, double checked every connection, made sure everything was up to code and then some. The building owner even stopped by one afternoon and complimented the progress. Clean work, he said. Professional. It felt good, being recognized for what I could do instead of what I looked like or who I was married to. But at night, lying on Tasha's couch, the quiet crept in, and with it came the questions. Was I doing the right thing? Was I being too hard on Whitney? Should I have given her more time? My phone buzzed constantly. Whitney's texts ranged from apologies to accusations to desperate pleas. I miss you. Please come home. We can work this out. You're being unreasonable. My father wants to meet with you. That last one made me sit up. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Why? Her reply came fast. He wants to talk. Clear the air. Please, Darius. Just hear him out. I didn't answer. Tasha came home from her shift around midnight, found me still awake, staring at my phone. What's wrong? She asked, dropping her bag by the door. I showed her the message. She read it and snorted. That man doesn't want to clear the air. He wants to control you. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. She sat down next to me. Dee, listen. People like Malcolm Hale don't ask to meet unless they've got an angle. He's not trying to make peace. He's trying to buy you off or scare you off. What if I want to hear what he has to say? Then you go, Tasha said simply, but you go knowing exactly who he is, and you don't go alone. I thought about that. You think he'd try something? I think he'll try to make you feel like nothing, and I think you need a witness to make sure you don't forget who you are. She was right. She usually was. I texted Whitney back. I'll meet him, but not alone, and not at his place. Her response took longer this time. Where? Somewhere public, neutral, your choice. Another pause. Then, the hotel restaurant, downtown Marriott. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'll be there. The Marriott restaurant was the kind of place that tried to be fancy without actually being intimidating. White tablecloths, soft music, business people on lunch breaks, and tourists looking lost. I showed up at 1:50 p.m. wearing a clean button-down and the nicest pants I owned. Tasha sat at the bar across the room, pretending to read a book but watching everything. Malcolm Hale arrived exactly at 2 p.m. He walked in like he owned the place, silver hair perfectly styled, suit that probably cost more than my truck, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He spotted me and walked over, hand extended. Darius, he said warmly, too warmly, thank you for meeting me. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, testing. Mr. Hale? Malcolm, please. We're family after all. We sat down. A waiter appeared instantly, like Malcolm had summoned him with telepathy. Water for me, I said. Scotch. Neat, Malcolm ordered. Then he looked at me. You sure? Lunch is on me. I'm sure. The waiter disappeared. Malcolm leaned back in his chair, studying me the way someone studies a painting they're thinking about buying. You've caused quite a stir, he said, pleasantly. Didn't mean to. Didn't you? His smile stayed in place. Come now, Darius. A man doesn't tip $1,000 to have his wife removed from a club without meaning to cause a stir. I met his eyes. A man doesn't tip $1,000 unless his wife gives him $1 first. Malcolm's smile flickered, just for a second. Then it came back, wider. Touché, he said. Whitney told me about that. Unfortunate. Unfortunate, I repeated. She was under a lot of pressure that night. The board, the merger, expectations. Sometimes we act in ways we regret when we're stressed. Is that an apology? I asked. It's an explanation. The waiter returned with drinks. Malcolm sipped his scotch, taking his time. Let me be frank with you, Darius, he said finally. I don't dislike you. You seem like a decent man. Hardworking, honest. Those are good qualities. I waited. But you and my daughter? He gestured vaguely. It's complicated. Marriage usually is. True, Malcolm smiled. But some marriages are more complicated than others. Whitney has responsibilities, a legacy to uphold, a company to run, and those things require a certain presentation. You mean a certain kind of husband. I mean a partner who understands the world she operates in, someone who can navigate board meetings and fundraisers and media scrutiny, someone who fits. There it was, clean and simple. I didn't fit. And I don't, I said. You could. Malcolm leaned forward slightly. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I have a proposition. I said nothing, just waited. I'm prepared to offer you a very generous settlement, Malcolm continued. Enough money to set you up for life. Start your own business. Buy a house. Whatever you want. In exchange, you agree to a quiet divorce. No drama. No publicity. Just a clean separation that allows Whitney to move forward. The restaurant sounds faded into background noise. All I could hear was my own heartbeat. You want to buy me off, I said quietly. I want to make this easy for everyone, Malcolm corrected. You walk away with financial security. Whitney gets to focus on her career without distractions. Everyone wins. Except I lose my wife. Do you really have her? Malcolm's voice went soft, almost kind. Be honest with yourself, Darius. When was the last time she chose you? When was the last time she made you feel like you mattered? The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I see the way she treats you, Malcolm continued. The way she hides you, the way she apologizes for you without saying the words. That's not a marriage. That's a burden. And you deserve better than being someone's burden. I looked down at my water glass, saw my reflection distorted in the surface. How much? I asked. Malcolm's smile grew. $500,000, cash, tax-free, yours the day the papers are signed. $500,000, enough to change my life, enough to never worry about money again, enough to walk away and start over, enough to prove that everything I feared about Whitney was true. I looked up at Malcolm, saw the satisfaction in his eyes, the certainty that he'd won. No, I said. The smile froze on his face. Excuse me? I said no. I stood up. I'm not for sale. My marriage isn't for sale. And whatever you think you know about me and Whitney, you're wrong. Darius, she's my wife, I said firmly. And until she tells me herself that she wants a divorce, I'm not going anywhere. Not for 500,000, not for 5 million, not for anything. I pulled out my wallet and dropped a 20 on the table. For my water. Malcolm's expression went cold. The friendly mask dropped completely. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high and my hands steady, even though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through. My ribs. Tasha fell into step beside me as I hit the sidewalk. I heard enough, she said. You okay? Yeah. I took a deep breath. I'm okay. 500,000, Tasha whistled low. That's a lot of money, Dee. I know. You didn't even hesitate. No, I said. I didn't. Because some things weren't for sale. Some things couldn't be bought. And maybe I was a fool. Maybe I was holding on to something that was already gone. But I'd rather be a fool with dignity than a rich man who sold himself cheap. I didn't tell Whitney about the meeting with her father. Not right away. I went back to work, focused on the electrical job, pulled wire, connected circuits. Let the simple, honest work quiet my mind. But Malcolm's words stayed with me, sat in the back of my head like a weight I couldn't put down. When was the last time she chose you? I didn't have a good answer. That evening, I was at the job site late. Most of the crew had gone home, but I stayed behind to finish. A panel installation. The building was quiet except for the hum of temporary lights and the sound of my tools. My phone rang. Not Whitney this time. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Darius King? A man's voice, smooth, confident. Who's asking? Jace Rowland. We haven't officially met, but I think you know who I am. My jaw tightened. What do you want? Just to talk, man to man. I'm actually outside your building right now. I looked toward the entrance. Through the glass doors, I could see an expensive black car parked at the curb, a figure leaning against it. How did you know I was here? I asked. I make it my business to know things. Jace's voice had an edge to it, friendly on the surface, sharp underneath. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I should have hung up, should have told him to leave, but curiosity got the better of me. I walked outside. Jace straightened when he saw me. He was exactly what I expected. Tailored suit, perfect haircut, the kind of smile that sold products and closed deals and convinced people to trust him. Darius, he said, extending a hand. I didn't take it. Jace lowered his hand slowly, smile never wavering. I get it. You don't like me. That's fair. But I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to give you some advice. I don't need advice from you. Maybe not, but you're going to get it anyway. Jace pulled out his phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward me. It was a photo. Whitney, at a restaurant, laughing, leaning close to Jace across a table, his hand on top of hers. Taken 3 weeks ago, Jace said casually, before your little scene at the Wren Room. My stomach went cold. She tell you about that dinner? Jace asked. I didn't answer. Didn't think so. Jace pocketed his phone. Look, I'm not trying to twist the knife here, but you need to understand something. Whitney is a project. She's brilliant, ambitious, and exactly what this company needs, but she's also got a weakness. And what's that? She likes fixing broken things, stray cats, failed businesses, and yes, people who don't fit in her world. Jace looked at me with something like pity. You were a phase, Darius, an experiment, a way for her to feel rebellious and grounded at the same time. But phases end, and this one, it's ending. You're telling me this why? Because Malcolm asked me to. Jace shrugged. He thought maybe you'd take it better from someone closer to your age, someone who gets it. Gets what? That you're fighting for something that's already over. Jace stepped closer, lowered his voice. Whitney and I are good together. We make sense. Same background, same goals, same world. The board loves us. Malcolm loves us. And if you really love her, you'll let her go so she can be with someone who fits. I stared at him for a long moment, studied his face, his confidence, his certainty that he'd already won. Then I pulled out my phone and started recording. What are you doing? Jace's smile faltered. Making sure I have proof of this conversation, I said calmly. You just admitted Malcolm sent you here to pressure me into leaving my wife. That's harassment. Maybe worse. I didn't. Jace's face went red. You're twisting my words. Am I? I kept the phone steady. Because it sounds like you and Malcolm have been coordinating to break up my marriage so you can move in. That's conspiracy. That's manipulation. And depending on how the lawyers look at it, that might be illegal. You're bluffing. Try me. Jace's perfect composure cracked. He stepped back, eyes darting to the phone. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice wasn't as confident anymore. Maybe not, but I can make things uncomfortable. I can ask questions. I can make Whitney wonder what you've been doing behind her back. I lowered the phone. If you want her, earn her. Stop lying to her. Stop manipulating her. Show her who you really are and let her choose. Jace's jaw tightened. You think she'll choose you? I think she deserves a real choice. For a second, I thought he might take a swing at me, his hands clenched into fists, his face twisted with something ugly. But he didn't. He just got in his car and drove away, tires squealing slightly as he turned the corner. I stood there for a minute, watching the taillights disappear. Then, I went back inside and finished installing the panel. My hands were shaking. That night, I finally called Whitney. She answered on the first ring. Darius, we need to talk. In person. Okay, when? Tomorrow night? Your place. Just us. No interruptions. I'll be there, she said quickly. I'll make sure I'm there. Good. I hung up before she could say anything else. Tasha looked up from the couch where she'd been watching TV. You okay? Malcolm tried to buy me off, I said. $500,000 to divorce Whitney quietly. Tasha's eyes went wide. What? And Jace showed up at my job site tonight, tried to convince me Whitney was just using me for a project, that I should step aside so she could be with someone who fits better. That mother... I recorded it. Tasha paused. You what? I recorded Jace admitting that Malcolm sent him, that they've been coordinating to push me out. I sat down next to her. I don't know if it matters legally, but at least I've got proof they're working together. Tasha was quiet for a moment, then she put her hand on my shoulder. What are you going to do? I'm going to give Whitney one more chance to choose, I said. No pressure, no tricks, just honesty. I'm going to tell her everything, Malcolm's offer, Jace's visit, all of it. And then I'm going to ask her to decide. And if she doesn't choose you, I took a deep breath. Then I'll know I did everything I could, and I'll walk away with my head up. The next evening, I showed up at the penthouse at 7. Whitney opened the door before I could knock. She looked different, softer somehow. Her hair was down. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup, no armor. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. She stepped aside to let me in. The penthouse looked the same, but it felt different, emptier, like a museum of a life we used to have. I made dinner, Whitney said. Nothing fancy, just pasta. I remembered you liked the kind with the garlic bread on the side. I looked at the small table she'd set up by the window. 2 plates, 2 glasses of water. Simple. Real. Thank you, I said. We sat down and ate in awkward silence for a few minutes. The pasta was good. Not perfect, but good. She'd tried. Finally, Whitney set down her fork and looked at me. I've been thinking about what you said, she started, about choosing you, about respect. And you're right. I haven't been fair to you. I've been hiding you and making excuses and putting everything else first. I waited. My father, she took a breath. Malcolm controls everything. My job, my money, my reputation. And I've let him because it was easier than fighting, easier than standing up for what I wanted. What do you want, Whitney? She looked down at her hands. I want to be brave enough to choose you. I want to tell Malcolm to back off. I want to wear my ring in public and introduce you as my husband and not care what anyone thinks. But, but I'm scared. Her voice cracked. I'm scared of losing everything. I'm scared that if I stand up to him, I'll lose the company, lose my position, lose the life I've built. And I'm scared that even if I choose you, it won't be enough. That you'll still leave because I hurt you too badly. I reached across the table and took her hand. Malcolm offered me $500,000 to divorce you quietly, I said. Whitney's face went white. He what? Yesterday, at the Marriott. He told me I could walk away with enough money to never worry. Again, all I had to do was sign papers and disappear. What did you say? I said no. Tears started falling down her face. Why? Because you're my wife, because I made a promise, and because I'm not for sale. I squeezed her hand. But I need you to understand something, Whitney. I can't keep fighting for us alone. I need you to fight too. With me. Not just with words. With actions. I will, she said. I promise. I'll tell Malcolm. I'll set boundaries. Jace came to see me too. She froze. What? Last night, at my job site, he showed me pictures of you two at dinner. Told me I was just a phase. That you and him made more sense. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Whitney listened to Jace's voice, her face going from shock to anger to something that looked like heartbreak. When it finished, she was shaking. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, Darius. I had dinner with him for business. That's all it was. I didn't know Malcolm was using him like that. I believe you, I said. And I did. I could see the truth in her eyes. But this is what I'm talking about. Your father and Jace are working together to get rid of me. They think I'm a problem that can be solved with money or pressure or manipulation. And unless you draw a line, a real line, this won't stop. Whitney wiped her eyes and stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. I have a family dinner tomorrow night, she said quietly. My parents, some business associates. Malcolm's been pushing me to bring Jace, to present us as a partnership. Are you going to? She turned around, looked at me with something I hadn't seen in months. Determination. No, she said. I'm bringing you, as my husband, and I'm telling Malcolm, in front of everyone, that I'm married, that Jace is just a colleague, and that if he tries to interfere with my marriage again, I'll walk away from the whole thing. The company, the board, all of it. Whitney, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She came back to the table, knelt down beside my chair. I should have done this 2 years ago. I should have stood up for us the first time Malcolm made a comment, the first time he suggested I keep you separate. But I didn't. And I'm sorry. She took both my hands in hers. I'm terrified, she said. But I'm more terrified of losing you, so I'm going to do this. Tomorrow night. Will you come with me? I looked at her, saw the fear, saw the determination, saw the woman I fell in love with trying to find her way back. Yeah, I said. I'll be there. The Hale estate looked exactly like I remembered. Big, cold, perfect. Whitney and I pulled up in her car just as the sun was setting. She'd been quiet the whole drive, gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. You ready? I asked. No, she admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. We walked to the front door together. Whitney reached for my hand and held it, tight, like she was afraid I might disappear. The door opened before we could knock. A staff member in uniform nodded politely and let us in. Inside, voices drifted from the dining room. Laughter, the clink of glasses, classical music playing softly in the background. Whitney's mother, Evelyn, appeared in the hallway. She saw us and her smile went cold. Whitney, darling, she said. Then her eyes slid to me. And Darius, what a surprise. Mother, Whitney said. We need to talk. After dinner, dear. Your father's guests are waiting. No, now. Evelyn's smile tightened. Whitney, where's Malcolm? Whitney's voice was firm, strong. In the dining room, but Whitney walked past her mother, still holding my hand, and headed straight for the dining room. The room went quiet when we entered. Malcolm sat at the head of the table, surrounded by well-dressed people who looked like they'd never had a problem money couldn't solve. Jace was there too, sitting close to Malcolm's right hand. Malcolm looked up, saw Whitney, saw me. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Whitney, he said pleasantly, you're late, and you brought a guest? I brought my husband, Whitney said clearly. The room went silent. Malcolm's smile stayed in place, but it looked frozen. Darling, we discussed this. Tonight was supposed to be about business, about partnerships. It is about partnerships, Whitney said. She squeezed my hand and looked at everyone at the table. Everyone, this is Darius King, my husband. We've been married for 2 years, and I'm done hiding that. A woman in pearls gasped softly. A man in a gray suit raised his eyebrows. Jace's face went red. Malcolm stood slowly. Whitney, let's discuss this in private. No, Whitney's voice didn't waver. I'm done with private discussions where you tell me how to live my life. I'm done pretending Darius doesn't exist. I'm done letting you control my marriage. You're making a scene, Evelyn hissed from the doorway. Good, Whitney said, because this needs to be said in front of witnesses. She turned to Malcolm. You tried to buy off my husband, she said. You sent Jace to intimidate him. You've spent 2 years trying to erase him from my life because he doesn't fit your idea of who I should be with. And I let you. I let you because I was scared of losing your approval, scared of losing my position, scared of standing up for what I wanted. Malcolm's face went hard. Whitney, you're being emotional. Let's discuss this rationally. I'm being honest, Whitney interrupted. And here's what I'm going to say honestly. Darius is my husband. I love him. And if you can't respect him, then you can't respect me. So either you accept my marriage, or you can find someone else to run your company. The silence in the room was absolute. Malcolm stared at his daughter like she was a stranger. You would throw away everything we've built, your legacy, your future for him? Yes, Whitney said simply, because he's never asked me to be anything but honest. He's never tried to buy me or manipulate me or make me ashamed of who I love, and that's worth more than any legacy. Malcolm looked at me. His eyes were cold with pure hatred. You've poisoned her against her own family, he said quietly. No, sir, I said. My voice was steady, calm. I just asked her to treat me with respect. That's all I've ever asked. Respect? Malcolm repeated. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You think you deserve respect? You're nothing. A working man with dirt under his fingernails who got lucky enough to marry up, and now you're trying to drag my daughter down to your level. Malcolm, Evelyn gasped. But I didn't react, didn't raise my voice, didn't give him what he wanted. I am a working man, I said. I fix things, I build things, I do honest work for honest pay. And yeah, I've got dirt under my fingernails sometimes, but I've never lied to Whitney, never manipulated her, never made her choose between me and her dignity. I looked at Whitney. She was crying, but she was still standing tall. Your daughter's not being dragged anywhere, I continued. She's making a choice, and the fact that it scares you says more about you than it does about me. Malcolm's face went purple with rage. Get out of my house! Gladly, I said. I started to turn, but Whitney didn't move. Whitney, Malcolm said. His voice went low, dangerous. If you walk out that door with him, you're finished. I'll cut you off. I'll have you removed from the board. I'll make sure every door in this city closes in your face. Whitney looked at her father. then at me. Then she smiled, small but real. Then I guess I'm finished, she said. She walked toward me and we left together. Behind us, I heard Evelyn calling Whitney's name, heard Malcolm shouting something about ingratitude and mistakes. But Whitney didn't look back. We got in the car and drove away from that estate without saying a word. 3 blocks later, Whitney pulled over, turned off the engine, and started crying for real. Deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere bone deep. I held her while she cried. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't tell her it would be okay. Just let her feel everything she needed to feel. When she finally caught her breath, she looked at me with swollen eyes. I did it, she whispered. You did. I think I just lost everything. Not everything, I said. You've still got me, if you want me. She kissed me then, soft and careful, like she was afraid I might break, or maybe like she was afraid she might. I want you, she said. I choose you. And for the first time in 2 years, I believed her. 3 weeks later, I drove past the Wren Room. Not on purpose. I was heading to meet Tasha for coffee, celebrating the completion of the big electrical job. The project had come in under budget and ahead of schedule, and Bill had already called about another contract. I had a new car. Nothing flashy, but nice, clean. Something I'd earned with my own work. As I passed the lounge, I saw someone standing across the street. Whitney. She was looking at the building, just standing there, staring at the black door like it held answers to questions she was still asking. I almost kept driving, almost pretended I didn't see her, but I pulled over instead, got out of the car, walked over to where she stood. Hey, I said. She jumped slightly, turned, saw me. Darius. She looked surprised, maybe a little embarrassed. I was just, I don't know, remembering. Bad memory? The worst. She smiled sadly. The night I became someone I didn't recognize. We stood there in silence for a moment. Things had been different since the dinner at the estate. Better, but complicated. Malcolm had followed through on his threats, frozen Whitney's accounts, pushed the board to question her leadership, made things difficult. But Whitney had fought back. Quietly, professionally. She'd hired her own lawyer, started building her own business contacts, stopped asking for Malcolm's approval. We still lived separately. I was still at Tasha's, giving Whitney space to figure out who she was without her father's control, giving us both space to rebuild what we'd lost. But we talked every day, had dinner twice a week, went to therapy together on Thursdays. It was slow, sometimes painful, but it was real. You ever regret it? I asked, standing up to Malcolm. Whitney thought about that. Every morning when I wake up scared, every time I look at my bank account, every time I realize how much of my life was built on his foundation. She turned to look at me. But then I remember that I chose you, that I chose myself, that I chose honesty over comfort. And no, I don't regret it. My phone buzzed. A text from Tasha. Where you at? Coffee's getting cold. I gotta go, I said, meeting my cousin. Okay. Whitney hesitated, then asked quietly, Are you coming over tonight? I made that pasta you like. I looked at her, saw the hope in her eyes, the vulnerability. Text me the time, I said. I'll be there. Her face lit up, small but genuine. I walked back to my car, got in, started the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw Whitney still standing there, watching me, waiting to see if I'd really show up. I would. Not because everything was fixed, not because the hurt was gone, not because Malcolm had suddenly become a better man or Jace had disappeared or the board had welcomed me with open arms, but because Whitney had finally chosen me where it cost her something, where it mattered, and that was worth showing up for. I pulled into traffic and headed toward my future, uncertain, messy, but finally built on something real. Some mornings, Whitney still saw my car outside. Some mornings, She wasn't sure if it meant forgiveness or just patience, but she knew the old version of our marriage was gone forever, and maybe that was the first honest thing we'd built together in years.